Calaveras County. Welcome to Tammy's Window on Calaveras County. I'm not Tammy Beilstein. I'm Mike Taylor. You'll see Tammy on the next episode of the show. And I'm really excited today because we have a guest with us who's new to the county, new to kind of the upper portion, what we all call the Highway 4 corridor. It is Mike Johnson, the new chief at the Ebbetts Pass Fire Protection District. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, you bet. And nice to have you in the county. Let's see. Let's kind of go from the very beginning. You were telling me just before we started filming here that you grew up in El Dorado County?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
I was born in Sacramento and grew up in El Dorado County in a small town of Calaveras, California on Highway 50 on your way to Lake Tahoe. And soon thereafter, when I was a late teenager, I think I was about 19, and ended up moving to Las Vegas on my own for work, and that's where I've spent the majority of my life at that point, or at this point. So, and then recently moved back. Okay,
and was it firefighting that moved you down to Vegas, or?
As a matter of fact, it was.
It was, okay.
I worked for U.S. Forest Service on the El Dorado in 18, and then transferred to an engine work with the Forest Service in the Las Vegas area. And after about 9 years of working with the Forest Service, I went to work for Clark County Fire Department, which is Las Vegas for the most part, but mostly the southern tip of Nevada. That's about 8,000 square miles.
I was going to say that's a pretty good-sized county, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it is. You know, about the size of New Jersey, I've been told. Yeah, so it's rather large, and you know, like here, it's based on cooperation with multiple agencies to meet the mission of fire suppression and EMS response and things like that. Sure.
So what brought you back up here? I mean, I guess maybe my question is, what attracted you to Ebbetts Pass Fire District?
As a matter of fact, I had been. My family and I had entertained the thought of possibly moving closer to family once again, and my wife's from Roseville, California, so naturally this is fairly close for.
Did you meet her down there?
As a matter of fact, I did.
Well, that's an interesting point. That small world thing.
Yeah, it certainly was, and I definitely Southern Nevada has been really good to me and my family, and we found this, what I'd call a gem of a place called Ebbetts Pass Fire District, and a great community. We have a son that's 9 years old, so you know, looking at the schools and the types of things that work really well for raising a family, it had everything. And professionally, it was an excellent opportunity for me to move up in the fire service to the position of fire chief. I was assistant fire chief in Clark County. So in all regards, it was a good move for our family and for me professionally.
Okay, now with kind of the education for firefighters, I find kind of changes a lot. It sort of depends a little bit also on, at your very beginning, are you going sort of what I know everyone calls sort of the structural side, and then sort of to the wildland side? It sounds like you might have obviously started on kind of the wildland side, but did you go to any fire academies or anything like that?
Yes, I had been initially started with El Dorado County Fire.
Oh, okay.
And in our town of Calaveras, California, that's the fire, you know, the fire authority there. And went through their program, becoming a volunteer firefighter for El Dorado County Fire, and the EMT, you know, first responder, then EMT, and of course firefighting school and firefighter 1, and then the wildland was a component of that. And the Forest Service seemed to be, perhaps that was a good opportunity to try to get out there and make the first dollars at the business, you know, and try to continue my way through the fire service. And then I ended up, you know, working for the Forest Service for a span of about 9 years, and a lot of the skill set or work ethic, you know, in regards to wildland firefighting, you know, is in the West especially has certainly been significant during the significant drought years, that
Oh,
we've
you
experienced.
bet.
And most fire departments, I would have to say, in the West are wearing, are doing multiple roles. One of them that's significant is wildfire suppression. So, not knowing at the time, of course, a background in wildfire suppression certainly was, a cornerstone, of course, of my background. In addition to that, of course, the tragic events that happened at 9/11 did, trigger a number of things. One of them was, the introduction of NIMS into the structure of municipal firefighting. That's
NIMS.
the National Interagency Management System.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, it's the way what we would refer to as kind of like the way the wildland firefighting approach is to managing an incident.
Okay.
And, it was, from my understanding, created for the most part here on the West Coast. And that standardization of the incident management system that has been used in the federal and state, wildfire suppression really became the standard across the board after 9/11.
I see.
Due to a presidential mandate.
Oh, okay.
That they, for municipalities and things like that, to require that NIMS training, that incident management training, that's just more of a standardization across the board. So I guess you would call it being in the right place at the right time. That skill set, helped me transition over into a structure environment, and eventually as being one of the training instructors or training officers in Southern Nevada with the county, and providing
so training
those
the
type
volunteers and all of that.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. So as that particular area started to require certain certifications for rank and file and company officers, I was heavily involved with those type of things, and the creation of all hazards incident management team for Southern Nevada, and really just kind of that incident management approach was another pretty significant part of my background and role with the county. So, among other things, but certainly, kind of ties all those little pieces together.
It really does. In how I've covered our departments, and department is actually kind of a stretch of the word, because we really only have a fire department in Angels Camp here in Calaveras County. Everybody else is a fire protection district, and so let's move to Ebbetts Pass. How is all of your staff paid, or what's kind of the percentage of volunteers too? Because I know you do have some full-time staff, don't you?
Correct. We are a combination district.
Okay.
So what that means is we have both paid and volunteer staff. We also have a cadet program for those that are under 18. And we also have a intern program that we have that's essentially for college students that are in the firefighting degree program. It doesn't have to be from one particular school. We do have a program that allows us to have up to 6 interns overall. And the priority, of course, is still school. So they're at school, and when they're not at school and they're assigned to a specific shift, they would typically come to the fire station and engage in training and those type of things. But, to get back to your original question, currently we're about, 60% paid and 40% volunteer.
Okay.
We staff 4 stations, 2 of which have paid staff assigned to it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And at any given day, the 24-hour paid staff is at 7 personnel. So there'd be 7 people on each and every day. And depending on if we have any of our administrative folks that work 40 hours, we have a couple. From 8 to 5, those type of things. Those
and that's doing that
vary.
paperwork, huh?
Yeah, that is necessary. Yeah. So that is essentially, the way that we staff, and those numbers could fluctuate with depending if we have interns or depending if we have, a volunteer that maybe they're, working or responding from home. So. it definitely fluctuates beyond that 7, depending
Sure.
on what we
Does it, do you, and I know you're new to the district, but I'm sure you've looked at, past years and past fire seasons and that kind of thing. Is it staffed a little bit higher, say in the summertime, when we have an idea in this area that things might be a little busier, or?
For the most part, it's a steady type
Okay.
of staffing. The variables that you can count on are perhaps peak times that we could anticipate maybe a larger volume of people visiting the area that could result in more emergency calls.
Yeah, the big camping weekends kind of thing, because, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but it's something that I've wanted to get to for a little bit here, is the fact that firefighter, and I'm not diminishing the trade by any stretch of the imagination, but what I think that most people who think about firefighters don't understand, especially around here in the county, is that most of your calls aren't actually fire calls, are they? Aren't they medical aids?
Correct.
Yeah.
If I were to take a general estimation, off the top of my head, we'd be somewhere in the 80 percentile of medical responses. And fortunately, our district has had a focus on that particular aspect of the business. The 3 units that we staff every day, 2 ambulances and a fire engine, are all ALS, meaning advanced life support.
Oh,
and
I see.
A further breakdown of that means that there's a paramedic assigned to each of those units.
Oh, okay.
Each and every day. And really the only difference between what our ambulances can do and the engine can do is the ambulances can take folks and transport them, whereas the engine is not going to be able to do that. But other than that, it has the same equipment, same capability, and same type of staffing.
Okay.
So that allows us, flexibility to respond. Even though it's a fire truck with hoses and water, we're able to provide that critical medical care.
Sure.
And and more responses than we would be able to, at the highest possible level of medicine on the street. So, so that's definitely something about the district that very proud to come into an organization like that.
What are the approximate boundaries of the district? About how far up for, and then do you go all the way to the county line up toward Tamarack and Bear Valley, or?
That's correct. The district itself is approximately 225 square miles.
Okay.
And it starts down there in the Utica grade coming out of Murphy's on the way to Forest
Meadows.
Meadows.
Come down that low. Okay.
Right.
So Forest Meadows is in Ebbetts Pass.
That is correct.
Okay, I did not realize that.
So our partners are automatic aid with Murphy's there.
Sure.
And then we go to the Alpine County line on 4 up there by Bear Valley.
Okay, so, and that's what I was thinking with those medical aids, thinking about a camping weekend, having all those people pour into Calaveras Big Trees State Park, and and then visiting the White Pines Lake up there and getting out into Spicers and that. You've got a lot of territory where a lot of people can get into some trouble and need your assistance, don't you?
Well, we have a close working relationship with the other agencies in the area and our partners. So while we may be mutually aiding one another within certain boundaries or jurisdictions, we are certainly ready to come in and help or take the lead as the lead agency in our jurisdiction.
Now, you mentioned the ambulances, and I know that's been in certain parts of the county, not up in Ebbetts Pass, but that's been kind of a contentious issue because you have the private companies that will run ambulances, and no harm, no foul on them. But is it more difficult, or do you think it's better to have the fire protection entity handling the ambulance?
I can't speak to opinions of what works best where, right?
Sure.
It's very dynamic. I'd have to say that I can speak from our perspective of, I know that the people that work at Ebbetts Pass they certainly love being a public servant, and most of our employees are also community members in the Ebbetts Pass Fire District. And they have certainly a vested interest in the well-being of their community members. You know, regardless of, you know, if you're visiting the area or not, and it's certainly they, you know, project a passion that coming from an outside agency, I would say is very remarkable. And and I'd have to say that they have a passion to do a very good job, and they do a very good job. So, you know, to get back to your original question, I guess the ingredients for the stew that's there in Ebbetts Pass with the response model is a very good one. And it seems to be mutually back and forth between the folks that work there and the folks that they respond to. So, and it's my intent to, you know, continue that relationship in any way I can.
What, how do you rely on the community, since, and maybe you can touch on this even with your experience down in Clark County in Nevada, when you have, we don't really have Calaveras County Fire, and so we have these disparate districts. How does everybody kind of get their funding, and how do you slice up the pie? Because I know it somehow comes from our property taxes, but how does Ebbetts Pass get its share so that you can provide all these services to residents?
No, you're absolutely correct. You know, it's tax based, and that's where the funding, you know, comes from. We have, you know, 2 special measures in our particular area that provides for the ALS engine that I talked about before.
That's right.
It just essentially provides that paramedics so we can have that level of service. And then the ALS ambulance that's stationed out of Hathaway Pines is Station 3.
Okay.
So there's two things that maybe vary in different areas, and other places have similar types of things in place. That's specifically how, you know, builds some of our operating budget. And so those are the types of fundings that I think you're referring to.
Okay. How does the community then support, because, and where I'm going, there's too much knowledge in my head and I'm not sure how to ask all these questions. I know that one of the most difficult things, especially for our smaller fire districts, is obtaining equipment. So how do you, you know, and not even necessarily an $1,800,000 new fire engine, but just the new breathing apparatus that the new fire providers need, or, you know, those kinds of things, that sort of equipment that I would call the day-to-day stuff.
Sure.
Is that just kind of built into your budget, or is that where you kind of end up going to the community and saying, hey, we need to do a fundraiser because we want to buy new whatever? Well,
I certainly believe that, you know, the community member obviously is tax-paying members of, you know, that's the contribution that they, you know, that's exactly what we, you know, fit everything into the box. And we look for alternative methods of purchasing, you know, equipment with, such as grant funding. For instance, you mentioned the SCBAs. Recently, collaboratively with the other Calaveras fire chiefs, 7 out of the 10 districts had went ahead and collaboratively went into, that were eligible. Trust me, there would have been more than 7 if they were eligible.
Darn that eligibility.
But you know, as it would have it, the grant guidance, you know, 7 were eligible, and we put in for a interoperability, you know, SCBA grant through, and that would be from Department of Homeland Security and from FEMA type funding. And so that's something that we would, you know, we seek out on a regular basis. Obviously, those type of things vary from year to year, opportunities and what have you, and depending on where, you know, where you come out in the ranking overall with grants like that, depends on whether or not you may or may not get those type of things. So we certainly look for those types of funding for equipment on those big ticket items such as SCBAs. And you know, of course we plan to have it, you know, in a capital outlay for replacement. And although, you know, by all means times are lean, and we have, you know, had a recession, and, you know, of course operating budgets that may have been planned out for 5 years ago may be may be different in today.
That's
you know,
right.
so you have to look for those type of things.
Sure. Now, as we start to come out of what we used to call wintertime here in California, having lived here since 1975, I can say we haven't had winter in quite a number of years, never mind how many times they've said the word drought. What are we looking for this summer? I mean, I'm anticipating, and actually I will say, and I want to knock on some wood so I don't curse us, but last year everybody thought, oh no, this is going to be the hellacious fire season. It's going to be awful. And I think Calaveras County was pretty darn lucky in 2014. As we come into this next summer that we just know is going to be dry and hot. I mean, I think the forecasters are saying what rain for the rest of this, like I say, so-called winter. What can residents in the Ebbetts Pass Fire Protection District look to do to make sure that not only their properties are safe, but their entire community is safe?
I think the key to it is being vigilant about, you know, fuels reduction around your home, or if you have an unimproved lot that you own, be vigilant about, you know, maintaining that as well. And what I mean by fuel reduction is, you know, for instance, you know, the perimeter around your home and the immediate 30 feet and outwards to 100 feet of fuel reduction to give your property, your home, the best fighting chance for us to come in the event that there's a wildfire.
You know, and I hate to interrupt you, but that 30 feet, I know that that's critical, and I've even seen examples where fires have burned through some foothills, and you can tell which house had the manzanita bushes underneath the deck, you know, because that house is gone, you know, and the house that had those protections. So give us a little bit of what that 30 feet kind of needs to look like, and then maybe the 100 feet also.
Well, that's a really good question, and I think that a lot of people feel as if that 30 feet, you know, and working your way out to 100 is somewhat of a clear cut. You know, and that is not the case. No. Essentially what it's referring to is fire-resistant type vegetation, if you have it. We want it more of a park-like setting, if that makes sense. Yeah. Meaning that the leaf litter or forest litter that would usually collect on the ground to be removed. All those things when they're dry, the leaf litter and forest litter is just really a place for embers to fall into and be a bed for it to grow. It's kindling waiting
to start. Yeah.
And as well as the you know, types of materials to that your house is actually sided with. To, you know, there's the scale goes from 1 to I don't even know where, as far as what's the most resistant and what's the least.
Sure.
And the more you can do to help prepare your actual structure is obviously, you know, going to help. And of course, from a firefighter standpoint, we look at things that are ladder fuels, is what we call it, and the larger trees that are, you know, let's just use an example of, you know, 1 foot to 2 foot in diameter are very resistant, for instance.
Sure.
But the smaller fuel that we call like 1 hour fuel, which is about the, you know, the size of a blade of pine needle, has a much larger surface area to the actual mass, dries out much more quickly. So what we like people to think about is there a ladder? In other words, is there something small from that pine needle that actually takes it from that type of fuel and grow all the way up to the larger type of fuel.
I see.
And even into the actual canopy of the larger trees. So if you have a continuous ladder of very fine fuel and growing in height as well up into the canopy of the larger trees, then that would be a much more difficult, the non-desirable type of landscape rather than the limbed large tree with no leaf litter on the ground, more of a park-like, once again, setting.
Sure.
So those are the types of things, and obviously our partners, Cal Fire, have a significant amount of literature too on the on the website, and to pull pull and look at some diagrams there. And of course, our office open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We're more than happy to talk to the residents there at Ebbetts Pass Fire District and help them get on the right track for, you know, what all those types of things mean.
Great. Now we're getting a little short on time, so I want to touch bases with you on sort of your staffing and what do you need volunteers? Maybe that's where just the most blunt way to ask that question. And how could somebody who's interested in that, maybe who's my age, who might be interested in, you know, how I might be able to help out the district, what can those folks do?
Well, we are certainly recruiting to grow our staff, and our number is something that we could probably share with somebody right now if that's appropriate. You know, at 209-795-1646. 1646, folks. And we will, you know, there's an application involved, there's a process involved. I encourage anyone that has wants to make that contribution of being a volunteer firefighter to contact us if they live within the district, and we'll get them started in the process, and we'll explain everything to them and see if it works for them. And you provide all the training. That's correct. Yes, we do. We train our folks. You can come in right off of the street and not have any background in firefighting, and we provide that type of training. That's great, and I have attended some of those trainings, folks, and they're interesting to say the least, but they're also so informative because fire does things that you have no idea. The movie Backdraft only gave you an idea of what a fire might do, and so I have seen these trainings in progress, and it's something I've always appreciated about firefighters. They're a lot like pilots. That you might have a lot of type A personalities, but they're all a good-natured, supportive bunch, and that's something I've always appreciated about them. Absolutely. There's a lot of camaraderie there. That's right. Now, again, welcome to the community. Thank you. You gave folks the phone number. Let's talk a little bit of fun stuff. You guys are celebrating an anniversary, and I had a note, and I'm going to mess up the folks in the sound booth because I've got the note here that'll tell us when that open house is. I want to get that out. It is August 1st from 9 a.m. to noon. 50 years. That's a nice celebration, a 50-year anniversary of the Fire Protection District. You got here just in time. Yeah. You helped blow out those, well, they won't be candles, but. Right. Especially not in August, right? That's right, that's right. Well, Ebbetts Pass Fire Protection District Chief Mike Johnson, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the county. Thanks for sharing the details. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mike Taylor. I will join you some other time, but join Tammy next time on Tammy's Window on Calaveras County. Thanks.